Yay, Hailey, I'm so excited to spend the morning with you talking about bubbly, yum, 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 and your
Yeah.
business. And of course, as usual, the real estate market. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So we go way, way back. Our friendship, our connection started through my mentor, Jennifer Mortgat. And we might talk about that. I don't know, because she's been a big impact on my life and I know has impacted a lot of people's lives. But first, I just wanted to share a quick update on the market. I actually pulled some numbers year over year, because I think year over year numbers says such a story. When I say, here's how much is for sale, here's how much pending, that doesn't really give us perspective. So I'll start with what's for sale and what's pending. Like I usually report, there's 701 houses for sale in Ada County for resale real estate. That doesn't count new construction, and 379 buyers under contract. So if you read the news or hear the news and it says no buyer, people aren't buying. Well, we have 379 local buyers buying resale. So that's pretty good for the perspective of that. Year over year though, this time last year, we had 293 listings versus 701. So we're more than double in inventory. That's going to make the market feel different than last year. And the year before we had only 125. We were coming off the lowest inventory of all time, 3 days of inventory in that like pandemic bump thing we had that in Boise, Idaho. So we'll never see that again, I don't think. Under contracts for the perspective of year over year this month, right now there's 379 buyers. Last time there was 533 last year. And then year before there was 404. I think there was less buyers the year before because there were so few available for sale that buyers that wanted to buy. We were doing 10 offers before a buyer got a house. So that's the kind of the why behind that. I don't think the market was better or worse. It was just different. So we're definitely still in a seller's market. It's just a shifting seller's market. Some buyers are getting deals because some sellers are really motivated and a little bit scared of the future. And then sellers, because price hasn't come down very much, sellers are still getting top dollar, especially if they have really great marketing and great staging and great representation on the other side. I'm noticing the top agents in town are doing really well. We're having our best month we've ever had in January. And then there's agents that are going and getting new jobs. So I think that's where the shift is going to start first, is realtors going away, which is interesting. Hailey, do you have any, I know we're talking about wine this morning, but do you have any thoughts about real estate?
Yeah, I have. I mean, that's how we met. It was kind of through real estate. So I dipped my toes in and then drifted away. But yeah, I like to joke that I don't necessarily think I would have come back to Boise, the Boise area, the Treasure Valley as quickly as I did. But I met my husband and he said, I'm not leaving Idaho. And so we compromised on Boise. And I am so glad that he forced my hand and I boomeranged back a little quicker than because I grew up in Caldwell and it's definitely a much different place than when I grew up, but I still love it and I'm glad that I'm here.
Oh, I didn't know that. So love kept you or brought you back to Idaho. That's
Yes.
so romantic. Oh, that's so cool. Well, tell us about your background and what did you do before wine?
Well, I did a little bit in real estate. I worked for Jen Mortgat.
Yes.
So kind of friends of friends of friends connected us and she was looking for someone to kind of help kind of personal assistant stuff, but then it moved into her real estate business. And so that was kind of cool and interesting and not somewhere I ever really thought I would see myself. But I had a lot of fun and learned a ton, not just about real estate in general, but kind of business and running a business and finding tools. Keller Williams always had tons of tools and ideas on where to go for new tools. So that was always really interesting.
So I have a question in that actually. Yeah. I want you to keep going, but how I call Jen Mortgat a mentor, would you call her a mentor too?
Oh yeah.
What is it? Let's just make this about Jen for a second. What is it? What's your best lesson? I mean, she's the reason why I've been a realtor for 18 years. So I owe everything to her. But what's your best learning lesson from her or life lesson?
Oh, that's a big one. I think because I've started out on more of the personal assistant side, I think I really learned a ton from her about balancing your professional life with your personal life, and not just your personal life, but I think I'm going to put words in her mouth, but I think she would definitely say family is first.
Yeah.
And having a really good example from behind the scenes of her
Mhm.
life, of seeing how that plays out. Because so
Yeah.
many of us, we say that or we hear it, but we don't really,
Yeah.
we don't get to see how it works. So
Mhm.
being able to see how it worked for her, and then going in and working for other people and understanding differences and seeing behind a couple, when you work for families, a lot of times you do see behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I've worked for some other families and gotten to learn tools about really how to put my family first once I started my family.
Oh, yeah. I feel like that's the seeing how the Mortgat family operated was such a great foundation of how I strive to run my family. And especially with Jim and Jennifer both being athletes and coaches, like it's just, I really aligned with, I didn't have the tools to be like them yet because I was so much young. We are both are younger than them and we're still learning, but to
Mhm.
have that example and that model so we can see what it could look like is just amazing. And
Right.
then on top of it, she was just like a really really good salesperson. Like I still
Yeah.
think of, like, I said things come out of my mouth and I'm like, oh, I learned that from Jen. It's like osmosis, just hanging out with her in an office so much that I was like, oh yeah, that was what we should call it, like a Jenism or something like that.
I
Like
love
only she would say that.
it. That's perfect.
So before real estate, was it college? Before working with Jen?
Yeah, so before working for Jen, I worked at another winery and as a one-on-one in a school. And that winery was I worked at a couple different wineries in the Walla Walla area.
Oh,
And then
so you do
before,
have wine background. I was like wondering if this
yes.
is like a new passion, but this is your foundation.
Correct. Yeah. And then yeah, before that it was the Great Recession. So I was kind of like, I'll do anything for anyone, please, for free. Just let me get experience. So I worked as a substitute teacher, and that moved into a full-time position as a one-on-one with a second grade boy.
Wow.
So yeah, that was great. I still am in contact with him a little bit, and that's super fun to see how people grow and change. And yeah.
That's amazing. So what led you to 3,100 sellers? Like, how did you get started, be the founder CEO of this amazing, of the only, what
Yes.
did you call it? The only bubbles business in Idaho, the first and
Exactly.
only?
Yes. Right now, we're the only sparkling winery in Idaho. So there are a couple other people that make bubbles, but we only make bubbles. And so that's somebody was asking us recently, like, when are you going to make like reds and just still wines? And I was like, we're not. Maybe when
That's
we pass the
amazing.
business on to our kids and they want to, that's one thing, but we don't plan to make still wines. And it's because we love bubbles. We're really excited to someday be the first sparkling winery instead of the only, because more bubbles is more better.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, but we got to 3,100 sellers by way of I was working in the Treasure Valley and got married and was kind of trying to figure out what direction I wanted my life to take. And again, a friend of a friend of a friend said, hey, I think there might be an opening at this winery in town. Do you want me to hook you up with my friend who can hook you up with their friend who knows the owners? And I said, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As an introvert, it wasn't something that I felt super comfortable doing, but I knew I was passionate about wine and wanted to get back into that industry. So I did it. And Earl and Carrie Sullivan at Talia Wine Company gave me a job. And I worked there for almost 8 years, I think it was.
Wow,
And
cool.
yeah, and while after the first season, after getting to know some people in the industry, my husband and I were down in Hell's Canyon, and he said, so are we going to start making wine? And I said, I think we should. And so a Halloween trip in Hell's Canyon after harvest,
Yeah.
and he convinced me to take the plunge and buy fruit the next year. So we started, and I said, I think we should make sparkling wine because nobody else is doing it. And I think that we could make great sparkling wine in Idaho. So that's what everybody asks you when you start developing a business, right? Is like, what's going to make you different? And so
Yes.
immediately I said, nobody else is making bubbles. So that's
Oh,
different.
that's what, that's so smart. You learned that earlier than I learned that because I just learned that recently. Gary Keller got on stage at a conference and said, you have to be number one at something. And I
Mm,
turned to my husband and I was like, we're going to be number one in customer service. He said, he's so smart and strategic. He's like, you can't track that. You can't track customer service. Like we have to be number one, something that's trackable. So we actually set out to become the number one most reviewed, 5-star reviewed team in Boise.
Oh,
And we were for a long time. There's a couple of groups that all jumped hundreds overnight. So I think they bought, I don't know. I don't want to speak negatively about anyone, but we're doing it organically, one review at a time, asking our clients to review us, right?
yes.
And so we're still on a trajectory to be number one in customer service through 5-star reviews. But it was like, I wish that I would have started the business like that, you know, with that vision, be number one, be the best at something, not everything. So how did you know to do that? Like, how did you know we're going to have this niche business and just do bubbles? That's so smart.
I think part of it was a little bit selfish because I love bubbles. It's how I got into the wine industry. I went to Italy after I graduated college. Again, great recession time, couldn't get a job, but I had saved up money from babysitting and nannying during college. And so I was like, I'm going to go and spend a month at a winery there working. So in exchange for room and board, I worked. And I fell in love with everything about the winemaking process. We were in the vineyard some days, we were in the cellar some days, and she only made sparkling wine. So I started drinking a lot of sparkling wine too, and realized it's fantastic. It shouldn't just be for celebrations. We always have wine and sparkling wine in our fridge now in case it's a Tuesday night and we're like, we're having pizza, let's have some bubbles.
It's Tuesday, pizza and bubbles. Oh, I love that. If someone's listening that wants to start their own business, what advice would you give to the introverts out there? Because us extroverts are super loud and obnoxious. And what are your superpowers being that you're an introvert? And what's your advice to help someone get started?
Yeah, I think I really appreciated you guys asking what my superpower was, because it really made me think about it. And as much as I want to say my superpower is making world-class wine, I don't think that is it. I think it's being able to look at a situation and kind of weigh it and say, how important is this? So the thing that I wrote down on when we discussed things before this going live was, making wine is not brain surgery. So having a perspective that's like, it's okay to make mistakes. This is just wine. And even if it ruins the wine, hopefully nobody's going to die. Like it's
it might taste gross, but no one will die.
Nobody's going to die. And so having that perspective is really important in things like winemaking. But as far as introverts go, I think just what you and Gary Keller were both talking about, which is you have to focus on what you do well. And if you focus on that, a lot of other stuff kind of just starts to happen around whatever it is you're focusing on doing well. Yeah. So if you're really good at making wine, and you just start making wine, even if you aren't good at getting out there and selling that wine, if you have world-class wine and a couple people learn about it, the extroverts go out and say, oh my gosh, have you tasted so-and-so's wine? It's so delicious. You have to try some. Yeah. So just
that's going to be me for you now. Well. I'm going to actually, because I haven't tasted, I'm so sorry, I haven't tasted your wine yet. So I want to taste it. I'm very excited. And then I'll connect you with the whole world, because that's like my superpower. So I'm so excited. And that's so right. That's so wonderful. Like that's the best sales, when it's authentic and real and it's just sells itself. It's right. And I love introverts because I feel like you guys are great listeners. And when you really listen and pause, and also great thinkers, you find out more. Versus us, like weird, loud action takers. Yes. I got to force myself to slow down and listen and pause. And I do now, I know that's really important, but that's not natural. That's natural for you, isn't it? Yes, at times. I mean, everybody, I think, likes to, when you ask the right questions, everybody likes to talk about themselves. Yeah. So there are definitely times when I'm happy to talk about it. And it's a sliding scale, right, between introvert and extrovert. So there are times that I'm more extroverted, times that I'm more introverted. Like you get me talking about wine and I'll be the loudest person in the room for sure. Well, and that's passion. And that's so cool too. Like not everyone gets to work within their strength zone and passion. And what do you have to say about that? Like for as far as any advice to figure out what the passion is?
To figure it out, I'll think about that while I answer it slightly differently.
Good.
The thing that helped me was Marshall, my husband. I would never have, and I don't think it's a introvert extrovert thing. I think it's
Right.
just another piece of the personality puzzle, which
Yep.
is I'm a very safe risk taker. I'm willing to take risks after I um, figure out the pros and cons and benefits and negatives. And once I figure out like the most likelihood of me landing in the zone I want to land in, I'll take the risk. But making wine is not one of those things that you can have a bad year. You can make a wine that's not very good. There's too many variables. So I was not ready to take the plunge. And Marshall was like, why we should do this. You've only been working in the Idaho wine industry for 6 months, but we should start buying grapes and making our own wine. And so having someone that was a good cheerleader, but also knew me well enough to know, to have confidence in me, I guess.
I think that's so beautiful about couples when they literally become better versions of themselves when they're together.
Yes.
It's not about us being so similar with our spouse. It's not possible actually to be married to ourselves anyways. That would be annoying. So when I see these great couples that push and pull each other, like literally are so opposite, but so perfect together with that respect for each other. And, like Lane is super strategic and I'm super action oriented. So he slows me down and says, let's think about this for a second. And he'll think of all the things that could go right or wrong. And then I'll push him, like I'll make him take action. And he always thanks me and I always thank him later, even if there's a little rub in between.
Yes, completely. Yes.
Well, so I want to dig into that statement you made about that this is like, it's okay to make mistakes and this is just wine people. How, because you have employees, right?
No, we don't.
You're doing all this by yourself? You're amazing.
Yes.
Okay, well, if you were to have employees, like, this is more of a selfish question for me because I'm perfect.
I do work with a lot of different people. So we've rented space from Talaya. I was on their winemaking team and managed their winemaking staff. So I do have some experience with maybe not my employees, but with other people.
People's the hardest part, and we'll never fully master people, but we can definitely be curious and learn through our relationships with people. So how do you approach, like, if someone else you're working with makes a mistake, how do you handle that?
Yes. And we don't have employees, but like we're bottling right now. So we put a call out to our friends and even wine club members that have told us, I'm really interested in learning more. Like when you're doing stuff, can you let me know? And I want to come and help. And so,
it's like a co-op.
Yeah. So we just had some of our friends help us bottle yesterday. And the way that I handle mistakes is I have to remind myself a lot. There's more than one way to do things. So it's okay to watch somebody do something differently. Having kids has taught me it's okay to let people, you don't want people to like get injured or anything. Like you definitely need to step in at some point, but it's okay to let people fail or like, learn, if somebody wants to drive the forklift, it's okay, go stack those things that are empty and you can't break because they're pick bins and they're sturdy and letting people know that it's okay to try things and not be good at them before you get good at them. And like I said, a lot of it is just reminding myself that there's more than one way to do this. And I'm super efficient. I like to tell people I'm really secretly lazy, but it's really an efficiency thing. Like I just want to do things the most efficient way. So after spending so many years in the industry, I have a lot of tricks and ideas about how to do things efficiently, but it's okay to let other people do things not to the same efficiency level that I want to do them, especially if they're there to help you just out of the kindness and generosity of their own heart because they love what you're doing or they're good friends with you.
Well, that sounds like too, you're focused on the greatness and the gratitude instead of like the one thing that went wrong or that could have been done differently, maybe not even wrong. And that focus, like what we focus on expands. And when we focus on like one little thing, our brains go crazy over that versus all the amazing things that are happening. What you said reminded me of I don't remember her name, but she wrote a book. She was like one of the female in the top of Facebook. Her
Oh,
husband died.
um,
Her husband died after she wrote this book. She was talking about him. Is it Susan something? Oh gosh, it's a great Facebook girl. She was talking about her husband changing their kid's diaper, and he was doing it all wrong. And she thought to herself, like, took a deep breath and thought, I'm so grateful he's changing his or her diaper.
right.
And if it goes really wrong, then he'll learn, pee will go everywhere. Not the end of the world. But then my husband totally did this, put the baby on the edge of the bed and they say like, oh, the baby doesn't roll yet. I'm like, what day would the baby roll? One day the baby's going to roll and fall off the bed. And so then it's a safety issue. So then you correct a safety issue
Completely.
with our team or with our spouses when we're managing our household. But you just let them fail through things that won't really hurt anything. And that like letting failure is the best way to learn. That's when ownership occurs. And
So
when I read that, I went, oh my gosh, I'm nitpicking everything that really doesn't even matter. Like, how annoying is that? It was such a good lesson. And I loved the diaper analogy.
that's a great one. I'm going to use that one because then the bed rolling, like that's a completely full circle analogy, like safety versus there's more than one way to do things. This is a great way to learn.
Yeah. So I work on correcting. I haven't mastered this yet, but it was good It was good to be aware of.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of all the nitpicking I was doing at that time of my life. So that's still like a natural ability of mine. It's actually a strength and a weakness. But now it's a more awareness. So in the business, if it has to do with reputation or follow through or something we promise someone, then we correct it. But if somebody wrote an email that's beautiful, that's maybe not quite the way I would write it, like a newsletter or something, then I go, that's great. Let's just let it go. Let it go. And it has the correct grammar and punctuation as far as I know, which I'm not good at that. So as far as I know, it's correct. And then we'll just send it out because it's good enough. Another lesson I learned from someone is that 75% is good enough. That's a C. C's get degrees. And oh gosh, I like to get A pluses. So like, what the heck? But with some things, not everything should be treated equally. Some things should be an A plus.
Yes.
Excellent. And some things are okay to just be average. Oh, true. Such a good lesson.
That is a great lesson. Yeah. So Earl at Talaya, Earl and Carrie Sullivan own Talaya, and Earl always would say, don't make perfect the enemy of good enough. Like if it's good enough, it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's something that we come back to a lot.
Oh man. Where is your winery? Like where do you grow the grapes?
That's a great question. So we just got our temporary certificate of occupancy up in the Eagle Foothills. We don't have a tasting room yet. So that's one of the reasons we've flown kind of under the radar. And we hope to be able to host tastings, very small scale. We're still a small scale winery, but I've learned a lot about the other side of the real estate coin, which is like land ownership and public or not, what's the word I'm looking for? Going through the right process with like local government to make sure that you're in the right place and everything. So it's been kind of a longer journey than we thought, but we do have an estate vineyard in the Eagle Foothills. It's off of Homer Road between like Highway 16 and Highway 55.
I'm so excited about the future tasting room and also so excited to connect you guys to more people. Could people do like tasting parties with you guys? Or are you guys too big for that?
No, we definitely can do those style of things. And we try to make it as easy as possible, like bring all of the wine, the glassware, everything. So it's just easy peasy. Yeah.
My brain's kind of going, we're going to talk about it. I'm so excited. What should have I asked you that I didn't ask you? What did you want to share?
Ooh, gosh, I feel like we covered so much ground. It's hard to think about what we didn't talk about. I think that the one big thing that sometimes I don't do well, because again, more on the introvert side of the scale, is talk about the fact that I'm trying to think of what Marshall would want to say.
What would Marshall say? Oh, that's so cute.
Is that we are making world-class sparkling wines in Idaho. And I know that we've flown under the radar because we don't have a tasting room and things like that. But our wines are standing up to wines, sparkling wines that are coming out of Oregon that have been there for, almost 50 years. Out of Washington, they're a little bit slightly younger sparkling wine industry than Oregon, but also they're standing up to sparkling wines coming out of California. And in blind tastings, even some wines that are coming out of like the Champagne region. So that's going to be the style of wine that we're making, is like high quality sparkling wine that's made kind of in the Champagne vein. Some of our wines, we like to have fun too. So some of our wines are a little bit different, but yeah. And so when you have our wines, we hope it's to celebrate even the littlest of things, but also you don't need to, sometimes the celebration is just popping open that bottle of bubbles. And again, Tuesday night with pizza.
I'm seriously so inspired by this. This is like one of my favorite episodes. Jennifer's going to for sure watch it from start to finish. So we know we have one viewer, and probably my mom too. So there's 2 viewers.
Definitely.
My favorite radio DJs from growing up were very famous in San Diego, Jeff and Jer. And they would always say, like, talk to their 5 viewers. It was like a joke that they had 5 viewers, and they had so many. They were like famous in the country. But I thought about that with this. I was like, oh, I have like 5 viewers.
Yeah. No, people are definitely going to watch it from our sphere too.
Oh, good. Well, I'm just so proud of you and amazed. And I'm sure there's like so much more we can talk about. So I posted, it's 3100sellers.com, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So I posted the website. I'm going to go back and figure out how to tag you later. I don't know how to do that right now. And then I'm so grateful for your time. I seriously learned so much from you, and I'm so proud of you. It's like really cool to connect after all these years.
I know, it's really fun to be able to connect with you again too. So thank you so much for letting me be on this morning.
Congrats for your success and in your family and your business. Those are
you as
2
well.
things to be proud of.
So much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.